to Star City in the future.
Yes.
Will we by any chance going to Central City and maybe during the time when Barry was still gone during that crisis?
Oh, we've talked about it. We're not going to visit Central City in that particular time period in season 1. We do return to Central City later in the season, though.
Now, with Rip Cunner's ship, it can go backwards and forwards in time. Can it also go into other dimensions and other worlds?
We haven't established that. We've said it travels through space and it also travels through time. I think if we were to have it travel through other dimensions, we'd have to make a story point out of it. It would feel weird to me to do a whole season and Rip would be like, oh yeah, by the way, we also have this capability and we've never told you about it. That would feel a little cheap to me. So if we had a good story reason to do it, I don't see a reason why not, but we'd have to justify it.
So how long are Sarah, Ray, and Kendra stuck in the 50s, and how do they deal with it when they come back?
Well, that's why you're going to want to watch episode 9 next week. Suffice it to say, I don't want to spoil by giving you the answers to that, because that to me is episode 9. But we do address those issues sort of very head on, and I will say that it won't be an inconsequential amount of time. Let's put it that way.
Can you tell us about, you've had like 1 or 2 episodes dealing with the Time Masters a little bit, but I feel like the entity of the Time Masters, how you join, who they are, what they represent, because they're not willing to actually stop anything. So are you going to get, basically my question is, are you going to delve more into who they are as an entity and what they're actually doing as a job? Because apparently saving the future doesn't seem really what they're trying to do.
Well, they're like U.S. Congress. They've got a job, but they're not particularly interested in doing it. No, I'm joking, but not really joking. In all seriousness, the back half of the season deals a lot with the Time Masters, and you will get a lot of answers to your questions. In fact, the first half of the season was sort of spent laying the foundation as far as the Time Masters are concerned for the back half of the year. You just didn't know we were laying the pipe because we were doing it in a sort of very slow, subtle way. But by the end of the season, you'll be like, oh, that's why I met that character at that time. That's why they said this at that time. Like, there have even been little things that, have happened throughout the first half of the season that, I think for the audience just played as like a toss-away line of dialogue, but it all had a reason to it, and you'll see the puzzle pieces start to come together in I think a pretty definitive fashion.
When it comes to time travel, things can get really confusing. So I was wondering, in the writer's room, do you guys have like whiteboards set up, like to try to keep all the storylines together, or is there one storyline in particular that's been giving you guys the most trouble?
Oh, great question. We do have a great number of diagrams and storyboards and whiteboards. That said, I always say, and I'm always the one in the writer's room who's going, by the time episode 9 airs, the people who are really sticklers for time travel, they probably tuned out by this point, and we've got to use the Doctor Who term, we have our most timey-wimey episodes coming up, and episode 12 in particular is like a crazy timey-wimey episode, and it's the kind of story, quite frankly, that we couldn't tell if the raison d'etre of the show is how do we very anal and retentive make sure that every rule of time travel works, because the truth is it's a fool's errand, because anyone who has seen any time travel movie or TV show knows it never lines up perfectly. It's just impossible. I don't care what the project is. So we are, we're trying to be responsible, but at the same time we want to tell the best story possible. And you'll see by the end of the year, there's a lot of things that do line up, and one of the things like you had asked, is there anything that particularly vexes us? I would say just for me, it's probably the mythology behind the Hawks. Though by the end of the season, you'll get a nice definitive explanation of everything.
Time for last question.
Okay. There's a persistent rumor that kind of keeps popping up that every season you guys are going to have like a whole new crew and it's going to be all these different people on it. And I think that maybe is born out of all the characters in these seasons that everyone loves and maybe pops up. So do you have a balance of bringing in new characters that people like?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't know. I think that rumor sort of got started at TCAs, where I think a couple of the critics got very enamored with the idea of the show sort of being like American Horror Story, where it just resets, every year, and we're not going to be like that. Each season's going to have its own distinct identity, and like with any show, there'll be new characters coming in, and other characters leaving, but you're not going to. The poster for next year is not going to look all that different from the poster from this year.
What could you about Jonah Hickens appearing in episode 10?
He's in episode 11. I can tease that. No, it's okay. And he's terrific. I mean, Jonathan is an amazing Jonah Hex. He's, I would say, very, very faithful to the comics incarnation with a touch more sass, a little bit more attitude. That might have had something to do with the fact I wrote episode 11 and I can't seem to write characters without sass. But he's great, and watching his interactions with Rip are they're gold. They're just so much fun. Jonathan and Arthur it's a great team.
Thanks, guys, so much.